Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, listeners. How y'all doing this morning? This is your host, Harry Williams, with our podcast, Purpose Over Pain. I hope you all are having an amazing moment, amazing morning. Thank you all for subscribing. I just want to say thank you, each and every one of you, for subscribing. We thank you for listening. We're at our fourth episode. We have about our fifth episode, excuse me. I think we have about 100 listeners, 100 viewers, and we thank God for that. So I want to tell you to continue to support this podcast. We believe in God that this podcast is going to go around the world. So you all continue to listen in. We're going to try to bring you good content every week, week after week after week. So you all keep subscribing, and we hope one day that you'll be on this podcast to tell us your story. But today I'm very excited. I'm very excited. We have our mayor in the building. We have our mayor in the building. Amen, amen. I'm not going to introduce her. I'm gonna have her as if she needed an introduction. You know, when I said the mayor, everybody know who I'm talking about. But Mayor, we thank you for being here today. How you doing this morning?
So good to be with you. I usually run into you walking on the beach, right? And
That's
so
right.
it's nice to be here talking to you this morning.
That's right. You've been cheating too. I haven't seen you on the beach. As a matter
I,
of fact, I haven't
I
seen.
am on the beach every day, so
Oh
I think
wow.
it's you.
Oh, so we missing each other.
We're missing
We
each
missing
other.
each other. You just coming off the Gate River run,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
How did that go?
Oh my gosh, I love that run so much. It's so great because it comes right after my marathon, so comparatively it doesn't feel that long to me. But once you finally reach that stretch where you're at the bridge, and you know all you got to do is get to the top, and then you let the legs fly to the bottom. All the agony is worth it. It's just perfect. But I love it. Anytime I can finish that race, I'm happy girl.
That's right. Well, finish it. Well, you won the race, right? Didn't you
Always win. Yeah.
You
Always win.
always win. Yeah. I'm hoping to get back in there real soon. I'm getting a little older now, so I
Oh
do need
yeah.
to run.
You can't use that one on me, right? Try
I
that.
I am. I'm getting older, but man, I'm so grateful for you. First of all, I want to just tell you, thank you for. I know you got a busy schedule. I'm grateful for you being here with us. And I want to say this to the world: thank you for being the greatest mayor that Jacksonville has ever had.
Well,
I
you
just
are
want to
you
tell you
are
that.
you are too
Yeah,
kind, and
thank you.
I
Yeah,
appreciate that. But I love the topic,
yeah.
and I love what you're doing. You know, I always will support in any way I can.
I appreciate you. And so now, I mean, you led me right into it. The topic, purpose over pain.
Yeah.
And I do believe, as I always say, all of us have a painful moment in our life, no matter who we are. All of us have a painful moment, but we also got to know that with that painful moment, that there's always a purpose through that. And so, when you hear that topic, purpose over pain, right? Like what comes to your mind when you hear purpose over pain?
You know, it's so funny because I would say decades ago, my husband and I used to argue about whether or not suffering had a purpose, and I felt very strongly it did not, and he felt very strongly that it did. Of course, our faith teaches us it
That's
does.
right. That's right.
And of course, you know, God sent me my own lesson in that way. I went through 3 bouts with breast cancer and learned, um, you know, sometimes I think we don't see what we need to see until our face is pretty close to the ground, right?
Right.
And I think that for me, that was when I think pain over purpose. I think you are to the point where you either give up control and decide that you are going to uh, be joyful in the moment and grateful in the moment, and turn that into a positive, or you're gonna sink and not get up.
That's right.
So that's what it means to me.
Wow. Wow. And so I heard you say your husband. So just give us a little background. Your kids, how many kids you have. Just a little background
Well,
about yourself.
together we have 5 children,
Wow.
um, 2 that are living with us at the moment.
I know how that is.
But no, he is definitely a person that constantly brings me back to balance,
Wow.
which is a great thing to have in your life. I would say he is the most spiritual person that I know.
Wow.
And so, in fact, it's so funny because we were talking this morning about this podcast, and I told him what the topic was, and he loves to read an author named Richard Rohr. I don't know if you've ever
Hmm.
heard of him,
Hmm.
but he's a Catholic priest
Hmm.
who does a lot of writing, and really more from a Franciscan sort of point of view of the church. And we're both Catholic, but he was talking about the word innocence. And he said what it really means at its root, Latin root, is before the wound. So the idea of the lesson was we must become wounded in order to feel the light and move forward.
Wow.
We must go through the trial, and I think that I see that now. Obviously, that I've lived a lot of life, but I don't think I would have done anything from my foundation to running for office, to so many of the things that I find called to do these days, had I not gone through those 3 bouts with breast cancer.
Wow, wow, wow. And you said something interesting in because the word of God tells us that Jesus learned obedience through the things that he suffered,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so, and Paul says, he said, it was good that I was afflicted that I may learn. And a lot of times people don't, while you're going through it, you don't understand. But once you get through it, you see what it produces in you.
Oh, there's no question. And at the very least, I tell people all the time when they say, "Don't you find the job of being mayor to be stressful? I mean, isn't all the politics stressful?" And I say, "Well, it's not cancer, you know."
That's right.
But
It's easy compared to that.
well, but the truth is, I don't know. I think for me, it really came down to, I think in a lot of us, right? We had this illusion that we have control over our lives, and we really don't, only to a certain degree. And I think that while I always considered myself a faith-filled person, I don't think I ever truly relinquished that, okay, Lord, I don't know where we're going here. I'm just going to trust you and we're going to go.
Right.
And I think that when you go through something over which you have no control, that really could be, um, a situation where you recognize your mortality in such a real way. I don't know that we learn much better lessons than that.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I mean, I shared this on the last podcast. You know, I'm losing my twin sister at 15.
Oh,
I mean, that was very painful. And then when you're young, you never really understand it as much. But as you get older, and now that I look back, hindsight, I see how my parents were. I saw how it kind of changed my parents, how they moved. And it wounded them. But over time, they definitely by the grace of God, they got stronger over time. And so I hear you say about, you had 3 bouts with cancer. So now let me ask you this. So during that time, can you remember, can you go back the first time? Do you
mm.
remember what was going on during the first time you got that news?
First time I was pretty cocky,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in my late 30s. They said small, treatable. I said, okay, I'm gonna put this in as an appointment on my calendar. I'm gonna run through it. I'm gonna go on with my very well planned life. And 2 years later, it came back, and that's when it got my attention. It came back in a deep lymph node, so by definition, metastatic.
Wow.
And that's when I started to blog. I started a journal that we called Donna's Journal. I was on the air then. I was anchoring the news, and started hearing from women all over the place saying, we love you, we're praying for you, but you should know you got it pretty good. You got a good job, you got good insurance. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get to my treatments and put food on the table for my kids.
Wow.
And so I started the Donna Foundation because I heard those voices, and I said, this must be a purpose for me in this pain, to start this foundation where I could help underserved families, make ends meet while they're going through this. So we started that, and then we started the marathon. And 5 years later, as we were approaching our inaugural marathon, I went in for my 5-year all clear. I'm like, woo, I'm going to go in. I'm ready. I'm telling my doctor I'm not coming back. And my doctor was actually out of town. And they put me in a CT scanner, and the doctor came in and said, I knew it was taking ridiculously long, so I knew something was not great. And the doctor came in and said, I'm sorry to tell you that cancer is back and it's in your left lung. And I thought, Lord, really? A runner?
Yeah.
This is my,
Yeah, yeah,
what,
yeah,
am
yeah.
I really going to have this cancer in my left lung? But honestly, Pastor, it was probably the first moment. I remember leaving the doctor's office, grabbing my husband's hand, not a word, walking through the Mayo Clinic into the car, and we both sat there in silence for the longest time. And I finally looked at him and said, you're going to have to help me learn how to live, because I'm not going to spend whatever time I have left on this earth in fear.
Wow.
And so it was a decision at that point. And I say this to people a lot because you can say you're not going to be fearful, but unless you take steps in that direction, just like reading your Bible, just like making sure that you're exercising to make your muscles stronger, you're not going to be able to do it. So I started down a path of readings and exercises and various mental things that I could do, spiritual things that I could do to flip the lens through which I was viewing my world from one of fear to one of love.
Wow.
And that is I would say for me, if I'm going to pick one moment in my life where I think was absolutely transformative, it was that day.
Wow.
I don't think anything has really scared me since then. Not to the level that I would say, I mean, obviously I'm human. I'm gonna get
Yeah,
scared every now and
no
then,
doubt.
but you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
not to deep into my bones.
Were there ever like a angry moment, like an angry moment, like God,
You
I'm
know, I'm not sure that you can go through grief without anger, and
yeah,
I think there is a grieving process, but I can't tell you that I was ever cognizant of being angry.
yeah,
I never asked why me. Um, I just remember thinking, I what there's so much I want to do. There's
wow,
so much I want to
wow,
do. And I think always my goal has been to find some way closer to God. I mean, that's always been like the goal, right? But I think that going through that and recognizing that the only way around is through, right?
right.
You've got to go through it and you've got to give up that control. I mean, that's hard, man. For a type A personality, that is hard.
Oh, you got a type A personality.
You think so?
Yeah, no, no, I wouldn't have
I
imagined that you had that.
yeah. I definitely do. But I just I can't tell you what a relief it is to not constantly look over my shoulder all the time.
Wow, wow. And
You
then
know,
and what I love to hear you saying is that, right, I concentrated on living and not dying.
100%.
Yeah, and that's so
I
important.
went to see a doctor, another oncologist, in addition to the one that was my oncologist at Mayo, who was complementary medicine. And she gave me a book to read called Love is Letting Go of Fear, which I call a 12-step program for fear addicts, which
Love
basically,
is letting go of fear.
yes, a gentleman named Gerald Jim Polsky wrote it. He ended up actually coming to my marathon for my 10th anniversary. Lovely man, just died a couple of years ago at about 100. But basically it was, ways to switch that flip that switch in your mind of when you see something and it causes you to react in a certain way, change your thought process.
Right,
And
right.
but you have to do it over and
Over and over.
over and
Yeah,
over and
it
over
has to
again.
be repetitive.
Right. So
Yeah,
that was the beginning. And then there were so many different steps along the way, but honestly, it's a daily process, there's another book that I really loved, written by a priest named Ronald Rollheiser, called The Holy Longing, and it talked about how we all have that longing to get closer to God, and that if we were to use the resurrection as an analogy for our daily lives, that we go through deaths and resurrections over and over and over again
right,
in
right.
our daily. But we have to recognize that. We have to be awake enough, aware enough to recognize that, and then ascend to the next place and go over and do it again.
Wow, you making me want to cry. Just listen to
Well, it made me cry, but it also it's just I'm so grateful to be here,
Yeah,
and I think that's every morning I wake up and the first thing I write down is thank you. I woke up,
yeah.
and I'm truly just grateful the fact that I get another day every single day. I go out
Yes,
and see the sunrise,
that's
you
right.
do too.
That's right.
I go
Right.
out and see the sunrise and I just say, amen, I'm here,
That's right. And I think that, and you said something that's really important. You say, I'm so grateful to be here. And I think that when we're grateful, it causes us to do something,
I
right?
agree.
When
Yep.
you're truly grateful,
Yep.
right? Grateful, you just don't, oh, I'm grateful. But when you're grateful, you're thinking about the opportunities that you have that so many other people may not even recognize that they have.
It
And
urges
so
you to action for
that's right.
sure.
It
Yeah.
urges you to action. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful as well. I'm grateful for the fact that to just hear you just talk about like your faith and what brought you through. Because most people don't, they have it, but they don't know they have it. And I
Hmm.
tell people all the time, regardless of who you are, we all came from God.
Yep.
right?
That's
And
right.
so when we came from God, we have a little bit of God in us,
That's
right?
right.
And when we recognize that, as you said, we want to get back to where we come from.
That's it.
It's like a kid that was adopted that always wanted to know their parent, right?
Yeah.
And they went on this relentless pursuit of trying to find who my daddy, who is my mother,
Yeah.
right? And so when we realize that I came from God, we do everything we can to reconnect with Him. Um, Now, during this process, do you have any individuals that you got to know along the way that you were encouragement for them, and they came back and say, "Hey, oh,
Well, my best teacher is always people. That's why I love to be out in the community so much because I feel like I learn so much from other people's perspectives. It's so easy to get caught in your own brain, right?
yes,
But there are so many people that have I've written a couple of books about my experience, and I've had people through either that or the foundation come back and say, "Gosh, your words meant a great deal to me. It helped me to get from point A to point B. I get it."
wow,
That helps.
wow,
Certainly, the foundation has helped more than 20,000 families, which I've heard from many, many of those people that have been grateful to get through a tough time where they're where. So I think but the truth is, I think we all help each other, and
yes,
that's really what it is for me. It's not like I'm not looking for kudos from anybody. What I'm looking for is that relationship where we can recognize, that love, that God in each other,
that's right.
that moves us further. That's why I have such a tough time with the whole, otherness thing. I've never understood it, and I especially don't understand it now. Um, so I don't know that we ever get to where we want to be. Certainly, I don't,
Yeah.
unless I can see God in every person that I see.
Right, because we're always growing. We're always growing. We're not the same. I tell people, you're not the same person at 35 that you was at 25.
Right?
Right, you have different needs. The stuff that got you going at 25 don't get you going at 35. The stuff that got you going at 35 don't get you going at 45. So we always evolving, and I think that that's what I love about the Lord so much is that He bring the right people in our life at the right time
That's
to
so
help us
true.
get, because all of us need each other. All of us need each other. No man is island to himself. And, for us to recognize that I need you, when we know that we need a person, then our perspective changes
Well, you brought it up though. You said it. You have to recognize it,
to recognize
which means you have to be open, and means you have to be aware, which means you have to be in the moment.
in the moment, in the
And I
moment.
and I think that people can say that, and it all sounds like sort of new agey and all that. But the truth is, it's just saying recognize that the kingdom of God is within you right now.
That's right. That's right.
It's not some far off place that
That's
we
right.
got to wait to get to. It's within you, and it's within your brother and sister and everybody else. And so connect to that love and that energy. And I think that's where I try to live. I'm not saying I'm always successful. You know, um, I don't think I'd be human if I was always successful. But that is what I always try to. That's the base I always try to come back to, or
Wow.
whatever it is. I feel like I'm constantly in a learning process, and that's great.
Yeah.
That's great to
And,
feel.
and, and what I love about you, every time I see the news, I pick up the paper, I see you in there, right? So
Is that good?
that's great. That's great. Because I believe a lot of times, we we get certain positions and then we hide from the people, right? And what I love about you is that you're always out, right? And I think that especially people that put you in office,
Yep.
right? They
People
want to see.
people are my superpower. I
Yeah,
love them.
that's right. That's right. And see, and your audio and your video match. I tell people all the time that
Oh.
our audio and our video got to match.
Oh.
What we say and what we do, it's got to
Oh, I
line up.
see. I
You know what I
see.
mean?
Yeah.
It's got to line up because folks are always watching us. But I thank God that you are a people person. You're a people person, and being a people person, sometimes it puts you in the direct fire of folks, because we live in the judgmental world, unfortunately.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about that real soon, but we're going to break right now. We're going to go for a quick break, um, and we'll come back to you soon. And once again, we just want to thank you all for tuning in to Purpose Over Pain. We thank you. Please go to Spotify, subscribe, like, do all of those things. And Purpose Over Pain, this podcast is brought to you by and sponsored by Another Luxury Brand. Also, if those of you all that's listening, I author of my second book. Those of y'all that want to go out and read it, it's called Blessed Two. It's a follow up to Blessed One. But once again, we love you. We thank you for supporting this podcast. We look forward to getting to you again with more people, more content coming our way. We got some amazing people that's going to be coming to sit in this same chair. And so we thank you for tuning in. Welcome back. We been talking to our great mayor. We've been talking to our great mayor, and before we left, we were talking about how we're living in a judgmental world. People that always, trying to scrutinize everything that you do. And by you being the mayor and being, really the leader of the city, being in that role, do you ever feel sometimes that folks don't always take stuff the way you want it to go over?
Well, I think what I learned is that people will use things for their own political ends.
Yes, yes.
So whether they really don't understand what you're saying or whether they just want to twist it into something else, I know that sometimes that happens too. But sure, I think the biggest, not much has surprised me about this job.
Wow.
But I would say that if I have a surprise, it is that a lot of the people on my side can be the most critical of me.
Of course.
When I say my side, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
I'm just saying
yes.
my political.
Yes.
I consider myself a pretty in the middle person. But the people that are on the Democratic side of the ledger, boy, do they put a lot of pressure on
Wow.
me. And I think they have the feeling that because I'm here, I can snap my fingers and change everything. And they don't understand that everything is a process, and is a government doesn't move fast. I try to make it move faster. But at the end of the day, I have to consider all the voices in the room and try to come to a place that makes everybody feel like they have a stake.
Wow.
Otherwise, you don't stay in a place very long, right? Or you don't move in any direction. You end up in a stalemate where you grab over this side for 5 minutes and this side for 5 minutes. And my goal is always to work for the betterment of every person in this city. But it is sometimes hard for people who want things to happen quickly. Or want you to say the fiery thing or be the,
that's right.
It's not always the pragmatic or, even desirable thing to do when you're trying to make progress. And that's what, when I leave this office, hopefully, and I'll get another term to do more work. But when I leave this office, either way, I want to have not only moved this city forward, but I want to have been an example of what I think our politics can and should be. And that is, let's unify in as much as we can do that and move together, because that's how we sustain it.
That's right. And in this process, because you're exactly right, it is a process. A process that we got to keep moving through. I always think about what the scripture says, that a prophet is without honor in their own.
Yeah. Oh, that's
right.
gosh,
And
I think
so,
about that. I think about that so much. I really do.
It seems like they're the most critical. They're the most, but it's a process, and so you have to keep moving through that. And I say this all the time: every leader has to understand before they lead that opposition going.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so in this process, you talked about, like, have you recognized, like, okay, there's a deeper purpose. There's a deeper purpose than, I'm the mayor. I want to do another term. I want to do that.
Oh,
but
yeah.
has anything like has come into your view, like, okay, then it's a deeper purpose than just this?
Well, it's the same purpose that I have every day, and that is to, that whole notion, and you've heard me use it before, that came from the Black suffragists who were left behind during the time of when women were getting the vote, but they knew eventually, if they just kept lifting with
Yes.
everybody else, that they would get there, right? So that whole notion of lifting as we climb it's how I try to look at my own journey to God, and it's how I look at my journey with the city. I feel like we're so divided and polarized as a
Yes.
people, and if I can somehow create a unifying force in the city where people can look at the person across from them and say, I may not agree with everything you say, but I see God in you too.
That's right. That's right.
We got to try to do that, and I
Yeah.
know it's hard.
Tell me
It's
about it.
getting harder all the time,
Tell me
right?
about it. Tell me.
But I do think, while keeping our values, I think we have to do that. And I think if I see a purpose in this job, it is that unifying force.
That's right.
I never thought I would do this ever in a million years, thought I would get into politics. Um, I didn't need to do it. I just wanted to do it. And I think that's one of the reasons that I am here is because I do want to do the work. And I'll continue to do the work as long as I'm here. And if people decide they don't want me to do the work, I've got a ton of other work to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is not something that I need to do. It is something that I want to do. And I hope that we are moving that way as a city where we're getting more unified.
Yeah, I believe we're making strides. I mean, you said something, and I think it's so important for. That's why I believe in believers being in the marketplace, right? We need believers in politics. We need believers everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I challenge my leaders. No matter where you are, you got to take the church go with us, right? We
Yeah.
don't. This just is just a building. But when with the church is in us, we're the temple.
We are
And
the
so
church.
we're,
That's
we're, we're
right.
the church. And so whenever we go and do anything, right, our job, the Bible say, whoever wins souls, they are wise,
Yeah.
right? And so what I'm hearing from you being in the role of the mayor, I like to believe, and you're inspiring other people, right? Because you're taking the light of the Lord with you. And when you take the light of the Lord with you, you have no choice but to inspire other people, whether they recognize it or not.
That's it. It's like it. That's it. It is about creating more light in our community
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. So let me ask you this: the on this process, on this journey, has there been whether in your family, if you have daughters, correct?
I have a son, and then there's my son and my daughter, and then Tim has three daughters.
Okay, okay. So has there been anyone that like latched on to you, like, and then like I want to, I see what you're doing. I'm inspired by what you're doing. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Your story just have it's inspired me, and they became like a mentor, a mentee.
Of the kids?
Yeah, the
No,
kids or the grown-ups,
no,
not
no.
just the
I mean,
kids.
I think the kids put up with me, but no, I think they're proud of me.
Yeah,
I think they certainly, hopefully, are learning things along the way, and we're very close. But I wouldn't say that any of them feel particularly compelled to get into politics.
really,
They
really.
probably look at what I go through and go, "Are you kidding me? I would never want to
The
do that."
opposite of that, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So not just kids, just anyone that you've that have latched on to you. They've seen your journey. They've been inspired by your journey, and you've been able to pour into them. Not from afar, but just walk along with
Yeah,
them.
I mean, I hope that there are some young people that I've done that with. I've heard from some of them. I've
Wow.
spent some time with some of them. I'm not that I'm not interested in older people. I am, but I'm very interested in young people because they're going to be our next generation
That's
of
right.
leaders. So I want them to get it.
Yeah, yeah,
I want them to care.
yeah.
And I spoke to a group of young people who came in that were interested in public service the other day, and I said, I don't want to put pressure on you, but I sort of do. Too many of you aren't connecting. Too many of you think this doesn't matter. Maybe not the people in this room, but your friends. So I said, you not only have to be interested yourself, you have to go out and cast that net, right?
That's right. That's right.
Because if we had 90 million people who didn't vote in the last election,
Wow.
I mean, I don't.
90 million.
It breaks my heart, right? That people just, however you vote, it breaks my heart if you just don't care enough to. And I think a lot of young people are going, look, I got too much on my plate. I don't. It's your world. It's your world we're influencing.
Wow.
And so what I've tried to do is mentor as many young people as I possibly can, so that I can hand the baton off to the next generation when I'm done with this.
Wow, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because we have to, and sometimes it may not come off the best way. Sometimes it may come off as we're fussing, or but we have to challenge our young people,
Yes, we do. We definitely do.
because we're fading out in the shadows, right? And and if they don't get the stuff that we're trying to get to them now, then we're going to be in trouble. And so just having that mentor, I think about my kids, when my sons and my daughters call me and say, Dad, I'm proud of you, right? Because they see that journey.
Yeah.
They see the stuff that I had to go through. They see the stuff, what God is doing now, right? And so it compels me to want to go and do more,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
every parent want their kids to have more than they have, right?
Absolutely.
They want every generation to have more than they have. And so and just talking to our guests, if there was anyone out there, there was some folks out there that they're going through a painful season right now, and have a difficult time, as we all do. What would you say to that person that hasn't recognized their purpose yet, and they in the pain phase?
I would say what I say to especially young people all the time, but I would say it to anybody. And I write it at the very bottom of my gratitude list every morning. After I say I'm grateful for everything,
Everything.
I say stay curious.
Wow.
Because if you stay curious, what that means is your mind is open to whatever is happening to you right now being a good thing or bad thing, whatever. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to judge it. See where it takes you. So you have to remain curious about what is it that sparks joy in this for me? What is it about, what is it? Be aware of those things that make you spark. And I think it can be really hard when you're going through the middle of it to see that. But there are things, if you open yourself to it, you'll see what is it that's bringing me that feeling of joy,
Yes.
that feeling of purpose. And I think if you remain curious and you don't judge everything that happens immediately as good or bad, and you just say, how can I use this to get to the next place? What can this do to push me?
Wow.
I think that's what I would say, because it's not always completely evident. For me, obviously, it was a pretty easy one because I went through breast cancer, so it became an obvious passion for me. It's not always such an obvious thing. But I think if the goal for each and every one of us is, and I'm not speaking for everybody, obviously, I'm just speaking for me, is to get closer to God, closer to love, closer to the light, whatever it is you want to call your higher power. That to me is where you're going to find your purpose. You're going to find your purpose in that exploration.
Wow, wow, yeah, and you said it so much. I like what you said. Every morning I get up and I a gratitude board, right? And we have to stay grateful,
Got to
right?
stay there.
And
And
about
that's why I do it every morning, because otherwise I can get myself all wrapped around the axle on any number of things that are going on at City Hall, right? So when I wake up, very first thing I do, very first words, I woke up. Amen.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So
And
you
I
start.
make my list.
That's right. Because you start. I tell people all the time that every morning we wake up to the line called life, right? And your flesh wake up, your spirit wake up, right? And whoever you feed the most, that's who's gonna win the race.
That's it.
And so if I wake up in the morning and I say, "Hey, God, I thank you that I'm here," right?
Absolutely.
Then so I start the day with my spirit man winning.
That's right.
And so the more I feed that,
That's
right?
right.
Because at the end of the day, you got to bark down. Did my flesh win or did my spirit win for
Right.
the day? And so I like that. I like
And
that
some
point.
days you got to pull it back.
Yeah, someday you got to pull it back. That's right. And how we pull it back is,
Yeah.
through positive confession, remembering. The Bible say, in all things give thanks.
That's it.
Right.
Yep.
I'm not thanking God that I got sick, but I thank God that I can thank Him in it.
Right.
Right. I may not be feeling my best. Things may not be going the way.
And I'm here.
And I'm here. That I'm here. And so, I thank you for just taking the time to just come and share with us. I believe that there are going to be people that's going to be inspired by this podcast, right? And for those that are inspired and they say, well, I want to, I want to follow her. Is it any type of, where they can follow your journey?
They know where to find me, right? They know where to find me.
You mentioned your nonprofit. So, and the name of the nonprofit is the Donna
It's the
Foundation.
Donna Foundation.
Okay.
That's where we help underserved families that are going through breast cancer. So certainly you can follow me there. I have written 2 books about my journey. One is called The Good Fight.
Wow,
and
I never knew that.
The other is called Through Rose-Colored Glasses: A Marathon from Fear to Love. And those all have some of the resources in that I've talked about. But you would actually see if you followed that journey. And those both belong to the foundation, so they
Okay.
have them.
Wow.
But you'll see if you follow that journey, um, the transition that I make from the fearful place to a place of more of a love lens. And I think that if I can do that, and it's a work in
Oh
progress
yeah. No
every
doubt.
day, anybody can do that.
No doubt.
So I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I just want you to know too that I love you and everything that you do.
I
I
appreciate
very From the very first day I ever met you on the beach, I remember saying to my husband, "That man has a light that you can visibly see."
To God be the glory.
Yeah.
And I remember when you was running for mayor, and I told you you're gonna be our next mayor, right? I remember getting my phone and putting in my phone Mayor Donna, right? And we prayed.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
remember
yes,
we prayed, and so just to see what God has done, and not only put you in office because it was actually ultimately Him,
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
placed you in office, but to see what you're doing while you're in office, because a lot of times God he advances us, and we don't always remember that,
That's
right?
right.
You know,
Oh yeah,
we
you
don't.
bet. Yeah,
I did a message yesterday. Don't forget where you come from,
right.
right? And so
We're a
you
very "what have you done for me lately"
yeah,
society, aren't we?
you're absolutely right,
And you
right,
got to
right.
remember.
And
You
you
got to
hit the
remember every day.
and you hit the ground running. You hit the ground running. And I thank God that you realized your purpose over your pain, right? And because I remember when you used to be on the news,
Yeah.
I remember that, and when they first said that you were going to run for mayor, I'm saying, yeah, I was excited about it,
Thank you.
because you still had that same spirit that you had even back then. And so I just want to encourage all of our listeners who out there, no matter what you're going through, no matter what's happening in your life, remember there is a purpose over the pain, but you have to go back to the maker. You have to go back to God, the one who made you. You have to reconnect with Him. I guarantee you that He will get you over whatever you're going through, because the Bible says that He's no respecter of person. He no respecter of person. If He did it for our mayor, He did it for me, He'll do it for each and every one of you. So I thank God for you today. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you go to Spotify. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, please, please, please. And we'll see you next time.